question of is it innate or is it learned? It is something that is innate, but it's something the innate stuff allows us to learn. And so it's kind of gets beneath a dichotomy into something that I like to think is more intellectually satisfying. Here's one difference between us, perhaps, and we discussed this earlier in the green room. I think of you as believing more strongly in the powers of human reason than I do. So when we hit upon these various, you might call them antinomies, what does consciousness really mean? Is the will really free? How do we think about time? You're quite willing to pull a Kantian or Wittgensteinian move and say, well, it all collapses into contradiction. Call it again, it's knowledge forever denied to us. And then there's this other sphere in which reason operates quite well. And I tend to think of that more as a continuum, that if we can't understand some truly fundamental things, the process in our thinking will bleed into everything we try to analyze. And I tend to think of reason as being fairly weak. Maybe I'm more Hayekian in this way than you are. People being ruled by their passions, as David Hume might have thought. And in this sense, I'm more skeptical about the Enlightenment. So what can you say to talk me out of the skepticism and back into the truly Pinkarian view?
Well, what are we doing here if you don't believe in reason? Why don't we have an arm wrestle or a beauty contest or
after dinner?
First of all, by the very act of even posing this question, you're committed to reason. That's what we're trying to explore here. So it's too late. You've already committed yourself. That's one. Number two, Hume, even though he was a very insightful psychologist, and he emphasized that humans are subject to all kinds of irrational passions and biases and so on. That was one of the reasons that he did philosophy was to expose some of those fallacies, the better that we should be able to work around them. And his argument about reason being a slave to the passions was not so much a psychological claim that people will lose self-control and they'll let their emotions get the better of them. He's probably making a conceptual point that the ability to go from A to B using reason doesn't tell you what the B should be. That there's just a logical distinction between goals on the one hand, or desires and beliefs, and that you can't, through a chain of deduction, identify what you ought to aim for. That's just a category mistake. That's different from the psychological claim that people are permanently irrational. People can be made more rational, I think you would say, well, and I would say, by the act of what we're doing now, that is exploring implications of ideas by science, that is by taking your beliefs and allowing reality to refute them or not. And historically, even though it's true that people do all kinds of crazy things, subject to all kinds of irrational prejudices, passions, and so on, on the other hand, some ideas really do bad ideas get got by the wayside. Not necessarily quickly, not necessarily absolutely, but we don't have human sacrifice anymore. We don't throw virgins into volcanoes to get better weather. We don't have too many hereditary monarchies anymore. They don't all work badly. Maybe not, but probably, on the whole, democracy is a better idea. But you can have bourbons. Denmark. I grew up in Canada, sure, and I grew up with a picture of the Queen in my classroom. So yes, if you have a purely have all the pageantry and gossip that you have with having a nice juicy monarchy, but the Queen doesn't actually pick up the laws. It's probably not a bad compromise. But in both the progress of science, and I really do believe there is such a thing as scientific progress. I think we see it in the fruits of technology, but we also see it just in the depth and satisfying nature of scientific explanation, and not linearly and not inexorably, but in progress in so many dimensions of human life. I've documented the historical declines of violence. And as an economist, that we've gotten a lot wealthier and
would say, fruits of the Enlightenment, despite the fact that as products of evolution, we've got a lot of irrational quirks baked into us. Fortunately, and this gets us back to, say, modularity or specialization, we don't only have irrational passions. We do have this big frontal cortex kind of grafted onto a brain, which now and again can override our passions. We can exert self-control. We can count to 10. We can save for a rainy day. We can hold our horses, not uniformly, not always reliably, but enough that it's something that we could celebrate and try to encourage.
Now, in the middle of all of these dialogues, we have a section called underrated, overrated. I'm going to name some things, some people, and ask you if you think they're overrated or underrated. And feel free to pass on any one of them. But let's start with rap music.
Oh, I never got rap music, so I don't want to say it's overrated. It may be that I'm overrated, and that or at least I overrate myself. But I just know. I mean, I was probably born too soon.
But there's a much younger Steven Pinker on YouTube debating with William F. Buckley, and Steven Pinker of that time is defending black English and telling William F. Buckley he basically doesn't understand what's special about it, and indeed Buckley doesn't. So is rap music, in a sense, not just a musical extension of the black English you once defended on Firing Line?
Well, it is in the sense that I would not make the argument that there's anything. That the fact that I don't have any rap music on my iPod is not an argument for the objective merit of rap music compared to any other kind of music. There I'm a relativist. And likewise, the grammatical structure of African American English vernacular, as linguists call it, Black English, Ebonics, there's really nothing inherently to choose between the rules in Black English vernacular and any other English vernacular. There I'm also a relativist. On the other hand, when it comes to what dialect we should use in formal essays, in the academic literature, in the New York Times, it's good to have a standard. The standard could have been Black English if history had run differently. It doesn't happen to be. It's good that we all settle on a standard to maximize communication and efficiency and certain aesthetic judgments. So the standardization is a good thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that one standard is inherent objectively better than another.
Aerobic exercise, underrated or overrated?
Underrated. I like it.
You like it? Yeah, I think it's good for you.
I hope so, because I like to think that I'm also accomplishing something when I go jogging or cycling.
Behavioral economics, economists playing in psychology. Obviously, you have a stronger background in psychology than the economists. What do you think of behavioral econ?
I'm for it.
What's it missing?
Well, I do think that it's missing. I'm completely out of my depth here, but I do think that it is too quick to dismiss classical economics. I don't think there is maybe another false dichotomy, but that the idea that the rational actor and models derived from it are obsolete because humans make certain irrational choices, have certain rules of thumb that can't be normatively defended. Those aren't necessarily incompatible because even though every individual human brain might have its quirks and be irrational, it is possible for a collective enterprise that works by certain rules to have a kind of rationality that none of the individual minds has. Also, it's possible, because we're corrigible, because the mind is many parts, we can override some of our biases and instincts, either through confrontations with reality, through education, through debate. And we do know that even though that people who are experienced in market transactions, for example, don't fall for the kinds of fallacies that behavioral economists are so fond of pointing out. You really can't turn a person into a money pump, even though in the lab I can set up a demo that shows that people can be intransitive in their preferences. But you actually put a person in a situation where there's real money at stake, and all of a sudden they're not so irrational. They walk away.
The passive voice in writing.
It has its underrated. Well, underrated, yeah. In the following sense. You look at any style manual, and one of the first bits of advice is don't use the passive. That's too crude. Academics overuse the passive, or maybe I should say the passive voice is overused by academics. But,
It is thought as such by many people.
It's so is thought. But it is, the case is overdrawn because no construction could have survived in the language for more than 1,500 years and to serve some purpose. And there are circumstances in which the passive is the better choice. In particular, when the topic of the conversation, the entity that's already in the spotlight is the done to or acted upon. Another rule of style, aside from avoiding the passive, is start the sentence with the given information, the topic, and the sentence with the new information, the focus. If you're only talking about something that is done to, then that's the logical way to begin the next sentence. And the passive voice makes that possible. If I'm talking about, if I say, look at that mine in the park, he's being pelted with zucchini, then since I've already called your attention to the mine, now I want to add information about him. If he happens to be the brunt of an action, then the passive voice is the way to begin the next sentence with him, as opposed to saying some people are throwing zucchini at him, where he gets put in the focus of the sentence, which is the best place to introduce new information. And in fact, as I pointed out in the sense of style, the two most famous style guides in the English language, namely Orwell's Politics in the English Language and Strunk and White's The Elements of Style, both accidentally use the passive in the very sentence in which they say that don't use the passive.
William Shatner.
Oh.
You're connected to him in several ways.
Oh, fellow Montreal Jew. I have to say underrated. No, although maybe not as singing.
Here's Susan, you're well known for your photography. Here's Susan Sontag writing on photography, and I quote, "Photographing is essentially an act of non-intervention." And she also wrote, "It is mainly a social right, a defense against anxiety, and a tool of power."
Overrated.
Yes, overrated. Photography or Susan Sontag?
Well, maybe just that passage. Like any art form, photography is many things, and and first and foremost, it's a simulacrum of perceptual experience. It's possible because visual perception doesn't consist of knowing the external world directly, but rather making hypotheses about it via a two-dimensional array of light that's reflected from it. You duplicate that two-dimensional array of light with pigment or LEDs, and you can fool the perceiver into thinking that he's seeing the actual thing. That is then in tension with the fact that the photograph itself is a splash of geometric and colored patches. And the challenge of photography is to both convey a sense of something out there, but also for that two-dimensional patch to itself be an aesthetically pleasing object. And as a photographer, I'm always cognizant of what will that two-dimensional patchwork of color look like, and what is it a photograph of?
If you think on all the different things you've written in various areas, what do you think has been your biggest mistake?
Well, where do I begin? Where to begin? Biggest mistake. I'm really going to punt on that.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, I'm just saying that this was not going to convey the impression that I've never made mistakes. There's so many. Where do I begin?
Let's turn to the topic of world peace. The book Better Angels of Our Nature will be available afterwards. Let me ask you a general question. Let's say it were possible, by spending $10,000 and devoting a few months of your life to it, that any person on Earth could blow up a significant part of a major city. They could buy something, some kind of explosive. It would cost them $10,000, How long would it take before someone actually did this?
Anywhere on Earth?
Anywhere on Earth. There's 100 billion people on Earth. Any one of them that can come up with the 10K and have a desire to do it, which is not most people, of course.
Right.
But how long would it take before this would happen?
Oh, I have no idea. And by blow up, you mean like the Tsarnaev brothers, or do you mean like Hiroshima?
Like Hiroshima.
Someone on Earth anywhere. Maybe not too long, but I don't know. I couldn't really prophesy that.
But let me then work back from that and ask you about your optimism and that piece. Is it then your belief it will never be that cheap to blow things up?
I don't know. My optimism doesn't consist of prophecy in that sense. That is, my optimism consists of looking at what has happened and noting that, first of all, the pessimistic view is actually incorrect. We believe that we're living in unusually violent times and we're not. How to project that into the future is a separate set of questions, and there are many unknowns that I'm not arrogant enough to know the answer to. It's something that we can debate, we can explore them, but I'm not an optimist in the sense of saying, well, let's just extrapolate curves in the future without asking questions like that.
Now, maybe you could at least try to talk me out of my pessimism.
Okay.
What I see is that through the course of history, as societies become wealthier, they also find destructive power is cheaper. Now, for most people, even today, the destructive power at their hands, while it can be quite terrible, it's not enough to take out a major city or start a war. But the price of destructive power has been falling for as long as we've had economic growth. And it's hard for me to think of exceptions to that trend. So if I expect economic growth to continue, I expect we'll get in a world in some way a bit like my $10,000 question, how long would it take? And I worry that will happen a few times, and then we will cycle into some fairly significant form of disorder. And that's my default prediction. I don't quite need to prophesize it, but I take that to be what one normally would expect. And I'm happy for you to talk me out of that. But what's the weakest premise in the chain I've given you?
Well, I guess there are two. One is that every form of physical accomplishment follows an exponential curve of getting cheaper and cheaper. For example, plane travel has gotten faster and faster. If you extrapolate from the Wright brothers to, say, 1957, then it just totally leveled off. In fact, it might be a little bit smaller for a number of reasons. So it is not necessarily true that there'll be a $10,000 nuclear weapon. I'm not an expert on nuclear proliferation, but my reading is that there isn't. You still need the thousands of centrifuges and so on. So that's one, at least, topic to explore. Again, I'm not an optimist and say, oh, relax, it'll never happen. It's just that this is. But then, on the other hand, I think it's very easy. I think it's too easy to be a pessimist and just say that I can imagine bad things, therefore they are certain, which I think is the default in a lot of our discourse. And there is, how much a desire is there for that kind of destruction? That is, we could see the rate limiting step on terrorist destruction is how many people think that it's a good idea to cause a lot of damage for no particular reason. We can have the Tsarnaev brothers in this audience, and the impression hooker that would blow up, in the next few days. I don't think there will be. But clearly there's no technological or economic impediment to that. The amount of violence that we see is not limited by cost of technology. It's limited by the number of people who think that it would be a good idea to blow a lot of stuff up for no reason other than attracting publicity. And there are certain kinds of violence that are so pointless that just no one really wants to do it. One of the reasons that we've gone now more than 70 years without a nuclear weapon being used in a war is that they're just not terribly useful as weapons to accomplish anything.
I mean, they're useful to deter an existential threat, all-out invasion. It's presumably why North Korea wants them. But they haven't been used on the battlefield because leaving a huge radioactive crater is just not a very coherent, war goal. And you could imagine some apocalyptic cult where destruction for its own sake is so desirable that they would do anything possible. And we don't know how many people like that there are. Let me try it. Well, we don't know how many people like that there are, and I don't know the answer. So
let me try another angle on potential pessimism and see if you can talk me down out of that tree. I'm sure you've thought about the Fermi paradox. There are more and more potentially habitable planets out there, and yet no one is showing up to visit us or sending us signals or constructing glamorous advertisements up there in the stars by manipulating matter. The universe seems oddly quiet, at least our corner of it. Now, that's not a surprise if you think that civilizations tend to destroy themselves once energy becomes cheap enough. But otherwise, if one is relatively optimistic as a default, where are they? To pose Fermi's question to you.
Yeah, I don't think there's a natural arc toward destruction of civilizations. And in fact, one could make the argument that it goes the other direction. That as you become more advanced, civilizations develop mechanisms that make conflict less likely, which I think is the trajectory we have gone on so far. Again, I'm not willing to prophesy that it'll continue. But, war is a pretty stupid thing to do. I mean, you blow a lot of stuff up, you kill people, and you don't end up with anything that you could have gotten by some other means. As soon as you become too belligerent, you give other people an incentive to destroy you. That may not be avoidable in Hobbesian anarchy, but if you could have some kind of system, either of world government or of the functional equivalent, like international norms in the United Nations and a set of expectations, then everyone could live a lot better. If you aren't all living by the sword, it's just as plausible to me that as civilizations advance, rather than having more and more destructive wars, they could continue the trend that we've been on since World War II, and they eventually make war obsolete. That's another plausible trajectory. And indeed, the idea that the worst aspects of this particular primate, namely, we evolved in such a way that we are too quick to anger, we're too quick to defend our dominance, that's the only way for intelligence to evolve, I think is parochial. It's saying that what we see in Homo sapiens is the only way that intelligent beings can come into existence. And, I don't think we should be constrained by that.
Outside of zoos and the like, do you think the other primates will go extinct?
Not the other primates. I don't think they'll be large as monkeys. Monkeys are like rats. As you know, you go to India, they're everywhere. Great apes. I think it depends. It just depends on the race between poaching and habitat destruction on the one hand and conservation and ecotourism on the other. I don't think they have to. They could, but I don't think they have to.
And what do you see personally as the greatest existential threat, the high civilization? The biggest worry?
I'll give to climate change and nuclear war.
But why climate change? Even if that's very costly, is there really a scenario where it ends civilization? Can people move, adjust, build?
It might be, they could, yeah. But it could be unrecognizable under the most extreme scenarios of what could happen. But it would be pretty miserable if you imagine the number of people that would die and the number of the decrement in prosperity. So it would be pretty bad. I don't think it would extinguish us as a species for the reasons that you mentioned.
What's your favorite TV show?
Let's see. In my entire lifetime, or
now, or your lifetime when you were 19?
Let's see. I like the Ed Sullivan Show.
Why Ed Sullivan?
Well, because where else could you see Italian acrobats and then a Jewish comedian, and then the Beatles, and the Supremes, and then another Jewish comedian, all in an hour.
He was an early proponent of integration on TV. You probably noticed.
Absolutely.
Very influential.
Absolutely. Particularly with the Supremes on, I think more than any single act in an era where America just barely started to desegregate. So yes, I like Hill Street Blues. I don't even know if that's available on streaming. I like Cheers. Those are, as you can see, I haven't done a lot of TV watching recently, and
Probably efficient.
unlike most academics, I think secretly watch TV as a guilty pleasure and then deny it. Kind of the other way around. Like I just don't watch a whole lot of TV, and I feel like I ought to watch more.
They're starting to use irregular verbs again. So let's take bioengineering technologies, gene editing, CRISPR, and the like. Imagine a much more advanced version than what stands right before us. So imagine that parents could, to some extent, influence or design the children they would have above and beyond eliminating a few particular diseases. Does that worry you, or does that get you excited that we're going to have smarter, better people?
I'm skeptical of the premise. As someone who is very interested in genetically influenced traits and was kind of excited in the 90s at the possibility that we'd find the gene for this and the gene for that, and there were a number of discoveries which turned out to be false alarms. Now, more and more, I appreciate that even traits that have a heavy genetic component, which most traits do, the genetic influence is distributed over thousands and thousands of genes, each of which increment or decrement the trait by a smidgen, and many of which have a mixture of positive and negative effects. So the idea that you'll put in the gene for musical ability in your child just turns out to be factually incorrect. That's not the way genes
But not now. Say we apply big data, Monte Carlo methods. You only raise the chance of your kid being a certain way by 1%, but there's that technology, and let it rip for 50 generations, and at the end, aren't people very, very different?
Depends on what the trade-offs are. I mean, we don't know how much boost in brain power you can get without an increase in chances of brain cancer, or of other trade-offs of a neural network that's too dense actually is stupider. So I guess I'm rooted enough in what we know about behavioral genetics not to think that these science fiction scenarios are just not particularly productive. I don't think I think it's probably a scenario that we're not going to have to worry about just because it's too complicated. And we're not going to want to, especially since every time you monkey with a gene, you are taking some chance that something will go wrong. Admittedly, CRISPR-Cas9 has become extraordinarily accurate. But if you're talking about changing 1,000 genes in your offspring, or 10,000 genes, we're so risk averse in genetic manipulation, even when it comes to our tomatoes. People won't eat a tomato that's genetically modified. The idea that you're going to take that kind of risk with your children, I think is extraordinarily unlikely that we'll get there from here. So, do you want me to speculate about the science fiction scenario in which we do? Sure, speculate a bit. I mean, I don't think it would be a terrible thing, but I think it's kind of an idle speculation because I just don't think it's. I don't think we have to worry about it.
And the last question before we get to Q&A. What is a book we might be surprised to find on your shelves that you've read or will read or want to read? So we're not surprised to hear Jerry Fodor and Noam Chomsky are on your shelf, right? What would surprise us? What's there that we don't think of as a Steven Pinker kind of book to read?
I have a big stack of bicycling magazines, and I am obsessed about the difference in weight in grams between various kinds of derailleur and water bottle cage.
So it's aerobic exercise being underrated.
Maybe.
Anyway, Steven Pinker, thank you very much. Q&A we will do from two mics you are asking a question to Steven Pinker. On this side, first in line.
Hi, Mr. Pinker. Thank you for speaking today. You mentioned the preservation of uncommon words and dialects that evolved as a result of geographic isolation, such as Appalachia and remote islands. With international connectivity caused by the internet, do you think that we are on track for more linguistic homogeneity?
We almost certainly are, and we're in the midst of a mass extinction of languages. I don't think it will result in everyone speaking English, even under the most dire predictions, say 90% of languages go extinct, at least 600, and no one's going to be giving up Spanish or Hindi or Russian or Chinese anytime soon. And in fact, the growth of translation software and of national media, combined with old-fashioned national pride and just the inertia of growing up with a language and feeling more comfortable in it, means that we're not going to have a single language driving out all the others.
On this side.
I appreciate the book, and quite an amazing thing that Bill Gates is recommending this book, so I have it. Do you believe that mankind has the ability to get prophetic dreams like Joseph in the Bible? And do you believe that we can act on those prophetic dreams? I did psychiatry, so I'm interested in your answer from that perspective.
No. Dreams are I think dreams are a kind of screensaver. They have, it would violate much of what we know about physics, for a dream to be able to prophesy the future. And our understanding of physics, I think, is pretty good. It's good enough to rule out the possibility that dreams can be prophetic.
On this side.
I was influenced by some essays you've written about the limits of language to sort of advance political change. That you've written with the euphemism treadmill and stuff like that. There seems to be modern versions of that where, to abolish gender binaries, we're going to just abandon pronouns and so forth. And you work on a university, so you're probably familiar with all of this. And I'd like your opinion on some of these strategies for advancing social change through abandoning certain languages and certain words and forms of language.
Yeah. Well, they're politically motivated campaigns to change language can have an effect, as we see in what I call the euphemism treadmill. That is, the fact that we don't use the word Negro anymore. Even though it was a very respectful and like that occurred to me in the 1970s. Martin Luther King frequently referred to Negroes in the Negro College Fund, and then got replaced by Black, which then got replaced by African American. But it's easier to do it with what linguists call open class vocabulary items, nouns and verbs, than with closed class or grammatical items like pronouns. And since the 70s, there have been a number of proposals to introduce a gender neutral pronoun into the English language. So you would have to say he or she, or the clumsy he or she. None of them have caught on.
conversation that I like to imagine you always have at over almost every meal. I'd like to hear you speak about just how central language is to being human. I'm thinking of J.L. Austin and John Searle on speech acts in the social constructed world, all the way up to, I think it's called the warp hypothesis, that the language we use limits what we can experience and do.
Yeah, I think it's. I think language is central to everything else that's human. I think that it was very much figured in our evolution by making social cooperation that much easier. Mainly with language, for example, you can make an agreement to do a favor for someone now in exchange for a very different kind of payback, or a payback very far in the future, something that you can't do when you're just bartering physical goods. I think that since our species lives on information, information is the ultimate trade good, because it is it's a non-rival good. You can share it with someone else without being deprived of it yourself, so it can be multiplied, and that makes it the ideal medium of communication, of reciprocity, conferring a large benefit to someone else at a small cost to oneself. So it lubricates the kind of cooperation that is hyper-developed in humans. It's also, I think, tied in with the fact that we're a technological species, that we live by our wits, no matter how, that with language, if you make a discovery, you can spare other people from having to remake that discovery. You can pool innovations that are invented across a huge catchment area. I don't endorse a version of linguistic determinism associated with Benjamin Ward, and it was pure language. We can only think thoughts from which there are words in our language. If that were true, then you'd have to ask, how did language originate in the first place? It wasn't kind of given to us by Martians. It was we developed language because we had ideas that existed prior to our being able to articulate them, for which we coined words. Language is always changing, and this gets back to Hayek's notion of spontaneous order and distributed intelligence. That even though language is this, even language is an exquisite system for conveying complex thoughts. It was never designed by a committee. It emerged because millions of people had ideas that they struggled to express. They would coin a bit of jargon, they would invent a circumlocution, it would go viral, it would become entrenched as part of the language, and therefore, and languages, of course, are always continuing that cycle. Our language is different from the language of the founders, which is different from the language of Shakespeare. So the fact that we're always adding to the language, we're losing bits of the language, as we talked about in the case of you making the verbs, shows that it is itself the medium of thought. And you can always invent a circumlocution if your language doesn't have a pre-existing word. And a lot of the brain is devoted to forms of thinking that are not just trading in words, not just assembling words. So I think Worf went too far, but there's no doubt that language is an inherent part of what makes us unusual as a species.
And unique.
Yeah, I would say unique. Other species communicate, but grammatical language in which satisfaction is